Well, hello everyone. Cynthia Tomain here with Interactive Brokers, and thank you for joining me for today's webinar where we'll take a look at the charting package that's available in your version of Trader Workstation. Now, TWS Charts are a powerful tool that packs quite a lot into a scalable and a customizable charting window. The real-time chart component of TWS functions independently, but it does share common elements that allow you to monitor price variations while you evaluate order criteria um, and market movement. Now, we do provide you with access to real-time line, bar, or candlestick charts in this self-contained window that will give you the flexibility to view data for periods of one minute to as far back as historical data allows. You do have the ability to monitor multiple charts simultaneously, add technical studies and trend lines, and even trade directly from the chart. So we've got a lot to cover here today. So let's go ahead and close this down, and I'm going to bring up my version of TWS. Notice that, first of all, I do want to let you know I am going to be working in my paper trading account. So any of the trades I create or transmit will not be presented for clearing, but we'll be able to follow through when trading from the chart as if we were trading live. Now, also do want to point out that any ticker symbols I use or display during today's session are meant to be illustrative and do not portray any sort of recommendation. Okay, so with that, now that everyone's able to see the Trader Workstation, how do you access the charts? Well, you'll notice right off that right in the middle of the Mosaic interface, there is a real-time chart that's embedded. It's also color linked to your ticker selection. So notice if I do want to add a separate ticker symbol, simply clicking that ticker in my watch list will populate because of these color linked icons. So when I'm looking at a particular ticker, if I want to view that chart, it's already in or embedded in the middle of the workspace. Now, I also do want to point out that while that chart is embedded, you also have the ability to open up additional charts. Notice that going from the new window button, there is a chart selection here, and accessing that chart we'll open up our chart parameters window so that you can set up the information for your chart. Now, I'm going to close that. We'll be back in a moment to talk about that. But I did also want to show you that notice a right click on a ticker symbol also gives you the ability to open up a new chart. So if you remember that right click, intuitive navigation choices will be displayed for you. And notice here, that same chart will open up. Now, for those of you who may be working in the classic version of TWS, I do want you to see notice that by default, you should see a chart icon located in the quick access toolbar at the top of the classic version of TWS. Let me move over into a separate, let's go into one of my other watch lists here, and do want to show you as well that notice simply right-clicking on a ticker gives you that same access to go in and view real-time charts. So did want to point that out. So regardless of whether you access it through the Mosaic or the classic version of TWS, you'll now be, or you'll be able to view those same charts that we're going to be discussing today. Now, I am going to take you back to the Mosaic because there are a couple of slight differences here. Now, in that embedded chart in the Mosaic, first of all, what I'm going to do is select a different ticker symbol. And you'll see that because of the color linking, it automatically updates that embedded chart. Now, also notice that the chart, or you'll see included in the title bar for each of these separate panels will be the ticker symbol that you're evaluating. Notice how it does display here, but there's a drop-down box, so you could actually navigate back to any previous charts that you've recently viewed. Now, next to that will be the time period drop down. Notice though, when I do make the selection, first of all, you'll see that 10-minute candlesticks are displayed in the chart. The number of candlesticks that are visible are determined by the size of the chart. But also do want to point out that notice here, zoom in and zoom out are not available when you're looking at that embedded chart. Well, that has to do with the candlesticks, or by choosing the candlestick size, what you're viewing is an automatic chart. Now, if you do want to add additional or view additional periods, notice here there is a scroll bar at the very bottom of the chart, and that will allow you to move back to previous days. Also want to point out that notice using your Alt key, it actually changes that cursor to a hand that will allow you to move back to previous times. So I did want you to be aware of that, and the range bar that's included at the very bottom of the screen. Now, notice I can add more. I can move back to prior market information, but also did want you to see that with an automatic chart, you'll notice that right underneath that title bar, there is a quick access toolbar as well. But the zoom in and zoom out buttons are grayed out. Well, that's a feature of the automatic chart because it automatically populates the size of the window based on the candlestick size here. It will show you the number of candlesticks that fit the window. But if you do want to zoom into a prior period, notice if you have a mouse with a scroll wheel, that by zooming up, it will actually allow you to zoom in and close in on a particular section that you do want to get a closer view. That scroll bar will also allow you, if you scroll down, it will zoom out so you can fit even more candlesticks on the chart. So I did want to point that out. That's the main difference between our candlestick periods here, candlestick charts, or notice there are also time period charts that are available. So if you do have a specific time period, for example, you may want to go back and take a look at 1 month's worth of data, 3 months worth of data, the maximum amount that's available, or notice there's even a more selection here that will allow you to select certain different time periods. And the final section, and by the way, notice the color coding. Throughout TWS, we do use colors to give you at-a-glance information. So in these peach colors here, you'll see our time period. The light blue colors show you an automatic chart. But then there's also favorites that you can create templates for those charts that you use most often. Okay, so right now what I'm going to do is go back to the candlesticks and do want to point out, and we'll be going through each of these different menus here throughout today's event. Now, also, when you're looking at an embedded chart, if you do want to see information or want to expand that chart, notice there is a maximize button that's included in the title bar. I also like to use a double click. Double left clicking on the title bar will expand that mosaic window to fit full screen within the mosaic interface. Notice here how you still have all of the same components to the chart that you do have displayed, but it's now in a full screen view. Double clicking again will collapse that chart back to its embedded position within the mosaic. So do be aware of that. All right. Now, so let's start with a brand new chart. Now that we've seen some of the different components, let's go in and I'm going to simply pull up, for example, Bank of America. By using this ticker symbol, it's now loaded directly within the screen or within the mosaic interface. But if I do want to open up a new chart, notice what I will do is simply right click and go into the charts and choose new chart. this opens up a chart parameters dialog box. Now, this will open automatically every time that you do go to open up a new chart. So I do want you to be aware of that. This actually allows you to set up the chart with basic default information. Now, anytime that you work from any of these setup windows in TWS, always work from top to bottom and from left to right, because the choices you make both above and to the left will drive what remaining selections you do have available. Okay, so to point that out, first of all, notice that I do have an equity ticker symbol here. You can display that ticker or simply add a new ticker symbol, and you'll have to define the underline just as you do when you're adding any of those tickers to your quote list or your watch list. Now, you do have to identify the routing destination, and it also will show you additional information about the underlying. Then as we move down to the chart parameters, you'll see here that by default, what is displayed is an automatic 10-minute candlestick. Now, if you prefer, notice here you could select a 30-minute candlestick, hourly, daily, weekly, and there's even more time period or time selections for those candlesticks. Now, do be aware that the notice here the smaller time frames, such as a 5-second candle, are available as you decrease the time period that is displayed. Now, for example, I may want to, instead of taking a look at a 10-minute candlestick, I may want a 20-minute candlestick, and it's as easy as that to make that distinction. Now, the next selection here is also on what to show. Oh, well, wait a minute. Before I go into what to show, I also want to point out the time period. It is a different type of chart. And notice what I'll do is simply go in and choose a 1-month time period. You'll now see, notice the background shading, that this is a time period chart. Now, notice, let's go back here for a moment. It is showing me a 1-month chart with daily candlesticks, but I might want to get a little bit more granular. So when I do get into the 1 month, notice here that by following or simply hovering for a moment, an additional panel opens up. And in this case, I might want to see, instead of daily candlesticks, I might want to see hourly candlesticks. So it's as easy as that to make the determination on what it is that you want visible within the chart. It's very easy as well to come back and adjust this at any one point. Now, moving on, I also want you to see that what to show is dependent on the instrument that you're using. Notice here I have an equity, and I can choose for what to show as the trades, the actual trades that have filled in the current markets, the midpoint, or the bid and ask. There's some additional features that are available here as well, such as option volume, historical volatility, even option implied volatility or open interest. Now, additional items, for example, such as shorting stocks, you may also want to view as the main focus of your chart the fee rate or rebate rate that's available in our securities lending platform. Okay, so notice that that's available. Now, the next section here is the bar type. When you do have notice here I've got candlesticks, but I could go in and choose the high-low, an open high-low close bar, the candlesticks, which is what we're currently seeing. Notice there's also hollow candles and ashy candlesticks as well. So your choice here determines what's going to be displayed within the chart. By the way, I also do want to go back and mention, notice here, you can even get a line chart. So, but once you've identified candlesticks, notice you do get those separate choices. Now on here, you'll see the volume plot. Now the volume plot is grayed out and it's currently set at large. Now notice down below where there's additional data and features that are available. Here's the one rule that proves the exception. If you do want to see volume, you will have to come down into that additional data and then notice that the volume plot height is enabled. You can choose small, medium, or large for the plot height that appears within that uh, or within your volume indicator. There are some additional features. For example, notice here you can choose to adjust the price for dividends. You can also choose to show a static number of bars in any window. And there's also a manual vertical scale. But before we get into all of that, I also want to point out that notice in the additional data and features, there's other items that can be enabled. Now notice here we do have the trades that have been activated, but you can choose to add additional panels within your chart for any of these other features on what to show. For example, you could choose the midpoint, the actual bid and ask, or any of these other items such as option volume or historical volatility. But notice there's something in here that is grayed out. How do you activate that? Well, a volume histogram is available within the chart, and it will show you the trading volume at each of the different price levels that are displayed in the chart. But there is a limitation, and that limitation happens to be the time period displayed. If you do want to activate the volume histogram, notice that you need to display a time period chart for 2 weeks or less. Well, I'm looking at a today or a 1 month chart, so remember that More button will give me access to a 2 week time period to view. Once I choose that or time period of 2 weeks or less, volume histogram then opens. So I'll go ahead and activate that right now. Any of these additional panels as well can be added onto the chart and will appear as sub-panels within that main chart window. Now, there's also some additional features, such as the estimated price range. Now, this price range is going to show you the standard deviation or the estimated range of 1, 2, or 3 standard deviations, and you'll have to put a check mark here, and then notice that you can choose those standard deviations. This will actually allow you to put a standard deviation cone directly within the chart, so I'll leave that enabled. The next section here allows you to decide what you want displayed on the chart. If you are looking at equities, you may want to see any splits or dividend payments. There's also so while you can activate that, you can also deactivate as well. There's a cash dividend indicator here, and I'm going to go ahead and activate a news indicator. This will put a yellow arrowhead at the time period or at the moment that it occurred, and it will display directly within the chart. Hovering over that news indicator will even give you the ability to go in and view whatever headline that was or that included the ticker symbol that you're viewing. You can even order from the chart. Now, if you do place an order, place a trade in your chart, notice here you may want to view that order description directly within the chart. And then, too, you might also want to view your trades. Now, when you do go to view trades, notice here you can select dashes or triangles. I'm going to go ahead and put the triangles, and these will appear as red or green triangles when you do place a trade that fills and will actually display at that price level within your chart. Now, also notice that you can display on the y-axis of your chart the high, the last price, the high and low for the current day, and I'm also going to activate the cursor price. Notice there are additional fields here that are available. I could choose the bid and ask, and you'll see that some items are grayed out. This again is because we're showing you an equity selection. If I did have an ETF displayed, you would notice that these too will activate and be available for you. There's also a vertical buffer. Now, that vertical buffer determines the height of your chart, and we'll see that once we do get into the chart. Now, also want to point out here, there's other items that are available as well. Now, as we get down to chart time options, notice that the chart is set to keep up to date when you first open it up. If you do want a static look at the chart, simply deselect this and then go ahead and launch the chart. I'm going to go ahead and keep it up to date, and notice there are some additional selections that are available here. Now, as I get down to the very bottom, I do want to point out that if this is how you want your chart set up, by choosing this box to bypass this dialog box for each new chart, this will become the default for each chart that you do open up. I'm going to leave that off for right now and then simply click OK, and you'll see that a separate charting panel just opened up. I'm going to double click that chart so that we can view this in full screen access. Now notice what I just activated on the chart is now visible within the chart panel. I mentioned those news articles, and notice here, as I hover over any of these articles, and you'll see, well, let's take that big down arrow, and as I hover, notice prior close happens to be that dotted line behind the red bar. But hovering over that prior close, notice, and I'm going to point out, a separate window opens in the upper left-hand corner of your chart. Notice here, you'll see that the headline is highlighted, and it's even clickable. If you do click that news item, notice how it opens up a separate page with that particular headline and the resulting story. Now, it does open up in a black window with white text. If you have some difficulty reading white text on a black background, notice we even include a separate icon in the title bar that will allow you to view that rather than in the mosaic window in a web-based window. So here you can actually go in and view that that particular article. I'm going to go ahead and close out of each of these, but I did want you to see that it's available. Now, also, notice how all of these additional or the yellow arrowheads still do appear. Now you can go back on a chart-by-chart basis into the edit window, and notice we could go back into chart parameters here, and I'm going to turn off that news indicator. So you can activate it. You can also turn it off at any one time. Just remember to click apply and then OK. Now, some other items we discussed were the, let's take a look at the y-axis here. Notice highlighted in bright green and red are the high and the low for the current trading session. Actually, underneath here, you'll see a gold colored icon that will show you the last price at which this contract currently traded. And then notice as I move my cursor into the chart, you'll also see as I move that cursor, notice how you see that it's the price that it's pointing at is highlighted within that price axis. On the other side of the chart, you'll see a separate chart window, and notice here there's an X that will allow you to remove this. But let's first talk about the histogram. Remember, this histogram is available for time period charts of 2 weeks or less. And what you're seeing now within the histogram are the different volume levels at each of the price levels that are included in the chart. So you can see that, notice the majority or evaluate where those prices or where most of those trades did occur. Now, at any one point, since we've activated this histogram, notice there is an X that will allow me to close that histogram and view my chart in full screen access. Now, once I've closed the histogram, notice there is a view menu that will allow me to go back and reactivate the histogram. Anything that you've enabled in that chart parameter box will be available, and notice simply by clicking here, I can reopen up that histogram. Now, there's also something that I haven't, or let's go into the view panel, because something else that appears is the quote zone. You'll see under within the chart, there is a quote zone that will display some additional information. So, for example, excuse me, notice here that on the left, I'm actually able to see the last price at which the contract traded, the change in price, and the percentage change that represents for the current trading day. Now, over on the right-hand side, the right quote zone will show you if you do hold a position in the underlying. Notice here I'm long 2,300 shares, and you'll see the average price at which I purchased those contracts. Now, also notice that next to it is the P&L. Now, P&L in this case is going to be the daily P&L. So notice here with the market, with the change down 4 cents, you'll see that for my 2,300 shares, that equates to it's down. This particular position is down. Notice the background shading. Here we have 3 cents, 4 cents, but this updates in real time. So it's letting you see what that change in price is. Now, it's change in price since previous business day, but there's more information that can be added to the quote zone by simply right-clicking. Notice if you right-click on the quote zone, you can actually choose here to configure the quote zone. It opens up our global configuration window, and notice in that left panel, it's already opened the charts, and here we're looking at the quote zone. Now, something to point out, you can configure both the left and the right column separately. Notice that this will show you what's currently visible. So if you do want to choose an additional selection, notice that I may want to go into let me see here, the high, the low, volume, and history, that I could pull this up and add any of these values directly within the chart. Now, I might want to see what that 52-week low is, so I'll simply make my choice, add it to the chart, and when I click apply, you'll see it's then added directly into the quote zone. So here we do have a selection, and notice that time period, or I should say the 52-week low. By the way, if it's something you don't want, simply highlight it and choose to remove, and it once you click apply, it no longer appears up in the quote zone. Now, I'm also going to move over to the right-handed quote zone, which shows if you have a position, what that position is, the average price, and the daily P&L. Now, that's showing me daily P&L, but notice I might want to see something more, such as my unrealized profit and loss. So I'm going to make this choice, choose add. You'll see how it appears. Now, when I click apply and OK, you'll see that I've just, there we go. And that window disappears. But notice now my unrealized profit and loss. And I also want to point out that you'll see here the color coding, or the text color, is letting you know whether it was a positive or a negative gain or loss. So notice unrealized, we're still in positive territory here. Okay, now on the window, also want you to see within the chart, you'll notice there is a prior close. And by the way, if you hover over information on the chart, you will find tooltips will actually pop up to give you a little bit more information. Now, this gray dotted line is showing you the closing price previous business day. So it's there and displayed. Uh, Now, also notice in the lower left-hand corner of your screen, you'll see a bar detail zone. Now, this is showing you the date, the time, the high, the low, and the close for any of these candlesticks. So notice here we have one candlestick that was noticed for this candlestick on March 28th. It shows you the high was 29.74, the low was 29.01, and the closing price of that particular candlestick is also displayed. Now, you notice here there is an X that's included, and you can actually close out that bar detail zone. Or simply right click because you could add additional information. When you right click, and that, let me see here. When you right click in that quote zone, bar detail zone, let me see here. It's not actually showing up. So for this item, you will need to use your configuration choice. Notice if I do go up to the edit menu, I can simply access the global configuration window again. This time, since I'm going through the chart, you'll see that my chart settings will activate here. A couple of things that I do want to point out before we get down to the bar detail zone, and notice that what you can choose to display on this window can be activated by simply putting a check mark in any of these boxes. I do want to point out your margin area because that actually activates that small arrowhead in the lower right-hand corner of your chart, and we'll talk more about that as well. If there are other features that you want to enable, you can simply put a check mark in any of these boxes and then make sure you click apply and OK. Now, there's also, and we'll talk about this later, you can create multiple charts, and based on your preference, whether you want multiple tabs that appear in your chart window, or I happen to prefer internal windows, and I believe that's the default. You can also choose the price access and where you want that displayed, whether on the right, on the left, or on both. And here you can see those selections are available. So for any of those layout lines that are being added to the chart, notice these convenient drop-down menus will give you the ability to specify how your individual preference. Underneath that, we also have the y-axis, and you'll see the same information that I chose in my chart parameter box is identified in both of these. So I did want to point that out. You can use the configuration window as well. Now, another item that's available are hot buttons, and we hadn't gotten to the hot buttons yet, but you can choose to display those in your toolbar. You can hide them or any place in the chart or any empty spot within the chart frame. Now, these hot buttons will allow you to trade directly from the chart. We'll go through that in a few moments. But where it will display is when you do have candlesticks, it will you'll see that those hot buttons tend to float on the left-hand side of your screen, so it's not covering up any important price action. So if you do choose to display those within the frame, you'll see those hot buttons will be located over on the left-hand side. Now, also, notice I'm going to come down to trend lines. We'll take a look in a minute that you can actually identify trend lines and whether in a real-time chart you want those to auto-complete as the chart is working or as additional information is being added to the chart, or to share those trend lines among the same charts that may be located in those multiple windows. Now, underneath here are the tooltips that are available. If you do want the Chart Trader tooltip, notice there is a button that will be enabled for that, and we'll take a look in a few minutes. But it's the bar detail zone that I was actually working my way down to. Notice here that this bar detail zone, when you hover over a bar within the chart, it will actually be displayed, and it is showing you the high, well, the date and time, the high, the low, and the close. If you prefer to see the open, simply put a check mark in front of that box, click Apply, and now notice when I do hover over any of these bars, you'll now see the high, the low, the open, and the close. So here is where you can determine what you want displayed. Now you'll also see, and I haven't talked about the volume or any of those additional panels that are added, and we'll go in and see how to add studies. But here is where you can choose whether you want to view those studies when added directly in the bar detail zone. Now there's also, notice here, separate studies. Some of the studies that can be added into your chart will appear as an overlay directly within the chart panel. Other studies will open up a separate sub-panel within your chart. Do you want them displayed? Do you want that bar details zone displayed in those separate studies? Well, yes, absolutely. By putting a check mark there, that will enable that. So once we've done that, I'll go ahead and click Apply and then OK. Now, we're not seeing any changes, and let me go ahead and I'm going to turn off the histogram. The only change that I'm currently seeing is that the open is included here. Now, underneath the chart, these separate panels are visible. And notice for volume, you can choose to deactivate or simply close that volume selector out with the X that appears in the margin panel over on the left-hand side. But once you've closed that bar, notice that or close the volume, you can always pull that up either using the icon that appears in the lower left-hand corner, or you can also, once it's been activated in your chart parameter box, notice here that we could go in as well and simply let me find the volume subchart. So you can, multiple ways that you can activate that. So I did want you to see that that's available. Okay, well, now I'm going to go ahead and close out of that because I did want to talk about some of the additional instruments or the additional features that are available. Notice I'm going to go into the Edit menu, and here are those chart parameters. This opens up the chart, and you'll see that it is very similar to that initial box that opens up. This allows you to go back in and on a within a chart, make individual selections based on the chart that you're currently seeing. Remember, the overall chart parameters will, and especially if you bypass this dialog box, will set up those basic, the basic setup for your chart. Now, on here, you can make any adjustments. And also want you to see there is a Studies tab. Now, notice here, and I'm going to go ahead and cancel this. Let me simply cancel out of this because underneath the Edit menu, you could also pull up the studies, the secondary series, or index comparisons. So what I'm going to do right now is let's go in here and I'll open up the studies. That brings that single window open. That does give you chart-by-chart control with your parameters, or you can add studies, secondary series, or index comparisons directly on the chart. Now, for example, if you do want to add moving averages, first notice that all available studies are grouped by categories. So simply click a plus in front of the category, and notice I might want to add a simple moving average. By selecting that study, choosing Add, you'll see that it now has been or now appears as an applied study. Before we leave this screen, though, notice that there are certain criteria that you can customize according to your individual preferences. Now, notice the source for this moving average could be the trades or the actual midpoint of the bid and ask. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at the trades, and did want to point out that the close or the input price is the close. But notice you've got several additional selections. So you could make this the high, the low, the volume, the median, or even a volume weighted time average. So just be aware of that. Also notice the period displayed. Now the period is going to show you a 9-period simple moving average, but you can also add, for example, a 20-period moving average. Um, Notice here it's also going to show you what those line colors will appear like. So I'll go ahead and click apply, and notice we now have a simple moving average that's been added to the chart. Now you can add multiple moving averages, and what I'll do is simply go down, choose another simple moving average, choose to add that, and this time what I'll do is we'll make this a 50 period moving average. Notice different line color will be displayed, so as soon as I click apply, and and let's move this box out of the way, notice that I have both those moving averages now displayed on the screen. Additional studies can be added, and what I'll do is collapse those moving averages, and let's take a look at the MACD, for example. Now notice, moving into momentum studies, I can pull up the MACD, choose add, and again, there are some editing capabilities. For example, each of the different uh, lines that will be shown, you do have the ability to decide how you want those to be displayed. With exponential moving averages, the period, so keep that in mind. Now, as soon as I do make that apply, you'll see, and then I'll go ahead and click OK. So now notice what is displayed. Well, first of all, a legend then appeared. Now, you can always open the legend from your view menu, but when you do add any of those additional studies, notice how you'll view the different line colors. And here we have the SMA, your simple moving average. 20 period is the blue line. 50 period simple moving average is that purple line. So now notice that within the legend, you can actually remove the information. What's displayed has a checkbox next to it. So the prior close, if I remove that checkbox, it's no longer visible. I could also remove each of these simple moving averages and notice how they no longer appear. If I did want to reactivate them, notice that I could come into my, let me see here, uh, oh, uh, it's not in the view menu, it's in the legend. I'd have to go back and activate each of these items individually. But once you've added them, notice as I move my cursor through the chart, you'll also be able to see those lines are still there. So whether you're looking at the 50 period moving average, or the 20 period moving average, those lines are still in the background on the chart. But also notice here, and I'll go ahead and reactivate these in case you do want to be able to view those. I did want to point out the MACD. Now, the MACD has several different criteria that make up this particular study. And notice that what I do have as a separate study, you'll see I also can move my cursor through the chart. So here where we see these two lines cross, notice when I hover over that information, it is displayed in the bar detail zone for this separate study. So you can view, and by the way, also take a look at the line colors here. The colors that are displayed in that bar detail zone correspond with the lines that are included in that subplot directly within the chart. Now, keep in mind you can remove this if you do want more real estate for the chart, and then simply go back and review this. And notice here, we can reactivate that from the view menu very quickly. Okay, let me see. Okay, I'm going to stop for a moment. Oh, 82,500. How to change the sound of the alerts. Okay, Andre, let's get through the charts and I'll try and come back to that at the end of today's webinar. Okay, and Charles is asking, can we have multiple lines represented by different underlyings and different colors all within one chart for pattern comparisons? Well, what you can do within the chart, Charles, and notice that while we've added these different studies, notice that you can add secondary series. That secondary series from the edit menu will allow you to choose additional charts. So notice here we've got Bank of America. I may want to add Bank of Montreal, for example. I'm going to go ahead and put that ticker symbol in, then choose Tab or Enter. And this case, it was Enter, and I will need to identify that underlying ticker symbol. So let's go ahead. I'm going to put this in, and notice here I'm going to add this directly on the chart. The source is going to be the trades, the same thing that I do have listed. And then you can also choose the selection, whether you're looking for want this second or this ticker to be the primary item that's included in your chart or a secondary. You can also have it auto scale by default. Additional contracts can also be added here as well. So did want you to see that that's available. Now, once you do click apply and then OK, notice that that additional line, and you'll see that has been added and also appears within the legend. But these charts are only available with a line chart when you're adding that secondary series. So something I might want to do is go back into my chart parameters and notice what I can select here. We'll go back and choose a line chart for this, click apply and OK. And now what I have are those simple moving averages, plus you'll see here the, notice my BM or Bank of Montreal appears in white, and the underlying here then will be, let me see, we have our simple moving averages, and I believe, this here looks like it's showing me the primary. So we're seeing both Bank of America and the other items as well. By the way, let's go back into the edit menu, because whether I go through this button or back into that separate window, there's also index comparisons that can be added here. So if you do want to add a particular index, notice the popular ones for global regions are displayed. There's America, Europe and Africa, or Asia. But you can also add additional indices as well. Simply type in a ticker symbol, and this has absolutely no relation. It's a precious metal indice, but it's one that I'll simply add to the new, add that and have that displayed. So even if we don't display the index that you want to make a comparison to, you can simply add that and it will display in the chart. Once you click apply and OK, that then becomes that particular chart. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this window out, and let's go back, and I want to start from a different ticker symbol. Now, and I did show you we were taking a look at inequity, but if I do want to go in, say, for example, on a futures contract, this time I'm going to pull up the charts. We'll pull up a new chart, and I just do want to point out, notice at the top of this screen that when you do select or what you have available within the chart are based on the underlying ticker symbol. So for example, if we go down here on what to show, you'll see instead of those 8 to 10 different selections that you had for equities, notice here for future contracts, I could choose the trades, the midpoint, or the actual bid and ask. There's not as many additional data features that could be added, but you still still do get the ability to add additional selections onto the chart. Now notice here the estimated price range is grayed out. Once again, it is not applicable to the ticker symbol that you currently do have displayed. Now, while we're on this window, and by the way, for future contracts, now most future contracts or those that trade beyond the pit trading hours, there's even the ability to show data outside of regular trading hours. So if you do want to view that within the chart, a simple check mark in front of that box will activate it. Okay, I'm going to go back up and let's add EUR.USD, just to give you an idea of a Forex currency pair. So once I make that selection here, you will have to identify this, and I'll go ahead and click OK. Now notice that in my chart parameters, I only get the bid and or the midpoint, the bid or ask, or historical volatility. Now that's because currencies in interactive brokers are treated as over-the-counter trades. So we don't actually get access to any of those real-time trades. So you'll see that depending on the financial instrument you choose, the selections will differ here as well. So I did want to point that out. Okay, now let's go back in, and I'm going to pull up Bank of America again. And this time when I go into the chart, notice that I'll go into a new chart. Let's go with the defaults that I'm seeing right here. And I'll go ahead and, oh, here's one that I didn't activate and show you before. We'll make this 2 standard deviations. There, I'll make it 2, and I'm going to deselect that and go ahead and click OK. And now, oh, let me go back in here, because what I do want to do is view instead of a line. Let's go into that 2-week time period, and I'll go ahead and click apply and then OK. Now, I do want to point out at the very bottom of that price access, notice that blue arrow, when I hover over it, that tiny arrow, for an equity, when you do have the estimated price range, notice if I click and drag left, it actually displays that standard deviation cone. So any price that falls within this blue cone is 2 standard deviations away from the current price level. So I did want to point that out. Now, as and by the way, notice that once you do, let me go into my real-time chart. Let me go ahead and open that chart up again. Now, once you've got that activated, notice where that arrowhead is. We'll simply click and drag and move that back. Now, that estimated price range is for equity contracts only. But for other contracts, now whether you go back and you don't have that enabled, let's go into our chart parameters, and I'm going to deselect that, click apply, and then OK. And what that arrowhead then becomes, it gives you the ability to add additional screen real estate over on the right-hand side of your window. So notice here that I've just moved that over. No standard deviation cone, but it is allowing me some additional space over on the right-hand side, or additional screen real estate, I should say here, for any for those of you who do require that additional information or that additional space. So did want to point out that whether you're viewing the standard deviation or simply adding some additional real estate, it is available through that small, tiny, and we'll see, notice that tiny arrowhead. And again, once you've activated it, you can click and drag and move that over. Now, on this chart, also do want to point out there is a small arrow, blue arrow, that will allow you to add vertical buffer. By left-clicking, notice I'm going to left-click on that blue arrowhead with the green bar, and it's adding some additional screen real estate. Once you do have that, notice that you can also remove that additional screen or that additional space by simply left-clicking that blue arrow with a minus on it. So I wanted you to keep that in mind. That same scroll bar is available at the very bottom of your window, and keep in mind that you can go back to prior dates. We can even go back. You'll see here that I'm back to December of 2017, and I could continue to move back even further. Now, when you do have that chart, notice here there is if you put your cursor on the range bar for the time frame that's displayed, well, let's actually move this over here. You can actually, when it changes to that double-sided arrow, notice how you can click and drag, and it will then display. And in this case here, as I simply hover over this, you'll see that I've now gone back to December of 2017. So you can increase, and you'll see TWS actually calculates the time period and the candlesticks, whether you're looking at 10-minute or hourly candlesticks. So wanted to point that out here as well. Um, okay, let's actually, now underneath, now before we go into some other items, I didn't talk about the toolbar that's available. Now throughout TWS, and what I'm going to do is let's take this back to current information, and notice that I could go back and simply choose, say, a 1-month time period, and it will refresh rather quickly. Now, with the toolbar that's available, this gives you quick access to some of the tools that we include within your charting package. You can always right-click within the chart and see what other tools are available. But if you want them on a quick access toolbar, notice here there's an arrowhead that appears to the far right of the toolbar that will allow you to configure and add any of these tools that you might use on a regular basis. So I'll go in and configure the toolbar, and notice that those items that appear with the check mark in front of the box will be in that box will be available for you. For example, I may want to go in and activate the Fibonacci lines. We'll go ahead and click Apply and then OK. And now notice that icon has been added to the Quick Access toolbar. So if I do want to come in and add those Fibonacci's, notice that I'll simply click on the icon that's available. Let's start at the high point of this chart and then just drag, and I'll also then match that up with the low point of the chart. And here you'll be able to see each of those Fibonacci retracement lines. So I did want you to see that those are available. Now, at any one point, you can come back in, you can adjust any of these lines, you can move them around, you could even remove some of the lines as well. But once added, they will remain within the chart. Notice here, I'm going to go in. And because we've added those to the chart, right-click, you can notice here how you can remove those lines. You can remove individual lines or remove all lines as well. So notice what I will do here is simply remove all Fibonacci lines, and they're now removed from the system. Now, also want to point out some of the other items that are available. For example, you could add commentary directly onto your chart. If you click this window, it opens up a separate box where you can type information. And let's go ahead. We'll put test, comma 1, comma 2, comma 3, and then simply choose OK. By the way, you can choose the font size, the color, or the font style, the font size, and even the color. But I'll go ahead and add that now. Well, nothing happened on my chart, but take a look at my cursor. It has an I bar, and wherever I choose to left-click, notice how that text has been added directly into the chart. When you hover over that text, notice how it turns to a bright blue, which gives you the ability to, with a right click, to go in and edit that commentary. So for example, they want to make that 14 pixels, and you'll see that it updates automatically. Now, also notice there are, what I'm going to do is the edit chart. Now the edit chart selection here, if I do click on that, it allows me to add a horizontal trend line or a vertical trend line directly within the chart. Or the edit chart will allow me to create a trend line. So what I'm going to do is, notice here, I'm going to simply click and drag, and let's take this, and what I'm going to do is let's match up the high points that are included in that chart. You can also, hey, by the way, notice that if you right click on that, you might even want to create a parallel trend line. With that right click, notice once I make that selection, I could then create a channel, for example, with multiple different trend lines. Now, with the trend line, notice here, it also shows you the slope of that trend line when you simply hover over it. Notice how it does display that percentage is included down below. And each of these trend lines are also do have handles. So if you want to change the slope, let's see, I don't have this set very tight too. You can click and drag those handles and reposition that trend line, or simply right click on any of the trend lines, remove them individually, or remove all trend lines as well. So you can add trend lines, you can remove them, and you can make them remember, in global configuration, you can actually set those trend lines to autofill or autocomplete as the markets do move. Now, let me go ahead and I'm going to remove the commentary as well. So let's remove that commentary. So the right click is very helpful. All right, let me see. I think we've talked about all of the features that are available in the chart. Let's go back into the edit menu and notice those same instructions are available from the drop-down menu, where you could add a horizontal or a vertical line, or if you are working from just a particular trend line, I also want you to be aware that if you do hold your Alt key down, and I'm sorry, I believe it's the Shift key. So let's go in. I'm going to edit the chart, but notice how I'm dragging that. If I simply use the Shift key, you'll see that I can constrain that to a perfectly horizontal line. So you can add that line. So if you're looking to add lines of support or resistance, notice that a right click will also give you the ability to go in and either on from that trend line, or notice if I do happen to right click, I could actually even change the thickness. So let's go in here and we'll change that to 4 pixels wide. And then notice too, I could even change, let's see, I have to right click directly on that row. So once it's highlighted in blue, let me go back in with my right click. All right, there we go. Notice that I could even change that trend line color. So I'll go in, change the trend line, and let's make this a bright yellow, for example. Go ahead and click OK. And then once I click Apply, notice how that then becomes available as well. So quite a few items. And when in doubt, I know I'm showing you a lot of information, but when in doubt, simply use the right click and you'll find intuitive navigation choices directly from that right click menu. Okay, before we do, now the next item I do want to show you is trading from the chart, but I will stop for a moment and let's see if we can handle some questions. Is there anything that explains what all these indicators are and how to trade those? Okay, well, with the indicators, what you can do, Nick, is go into our user guide, and it is available directly from underneath the help menu. Notice if you go into guides and documentation, you can go into the online user guide, and let me see, that opened up in a separate window over on the other side. And here where we could go into technical analytics, notice I'll go down and you'll find the let me see. Here we do have the chart and the chart indicators. That's what I'm looking for. So when you do access the chart indicators, there's about 200 of them that are available. And we're adding more with each rollout. So if you do want to see what each of these indicators are, notice, let's go in, say average true range. You can find out a little bit more about that particular indicator. So check the user guide. Now, as far as trading off of those symbols, I don't believe we include any of that in our documentation. Um, okay, let me see. Thomas is asking, is it possible to pull a Fibonacci and limit it to my pull movement, say 10 candlesticks, instead of going across all candlesticks on the screen? Well, Thomas, let's see, let's pull up that. Let me get back in here. My chart fell behind, so I'm going to pull that up. By the way, notice that with that chart, it is a separate charting window. If you do want to pull it, moving that over, I do have multiple monitors. I can actually put that out and on any additional monitor, but also notice that there is a push pin icon that will allow me to anchor that directly on the screen. Now, so the next time if I happen to click outside, this window won't fall behind the rest of the Trader Workstation platform. Now, if you do want to add those Fibonacci lines, I did go all the way to the bottom, but you can choose. For example, notice here, you can make that selection. Now, notice that it does include some additional items here, so you may want to go in and simply view uh, or take this into a more narrowed view. Now we're still, notice now that I do have that zoom in and zoom out on time period charts. That does work. So let's first of all, what I am going to do is right click on these lines. Let's remove all of those Fibonacci lines. And then as I do go to zoom into the chart, notice that I may want to just select current market action. So now when I go in, I can pull those Fibonacci's for just what's available, say, for example, for the items or the candlesticks that do display on my chart. So you may want to use the zoom in. You can also zoom back out and notice that you'll get not only the 0 to 100%, but also some of those additional retracement lines are available. But for right now, what I am going to do is simply uh, remember, I'm going to right click, or we could go into the edit menu, and I'm going to clear all annotations on the screen. Okay, let me see. Is it possible to see the number of trades, ticks per candle? Well, these are not tick based. So remember back in our chart parameters that when you are taking a look, let's go back into chart parameters. For the ticker symbol that you do have selected, you'll see here that these are not measuring ticks, they're measuring actual trades in the market. So what you can do, and in that bar detail zone, by simply, let's go ahead and I'll choose cancel here, and any of these bars that you do hover over, it will show you the open, high, low, close, but not the number of uh, uh, ticks or trades per candle. It just shows you the price action for the candlestick. Um, okay. All right, and Kisraj, I think a fib retracement available also, and I think you just had a chance to see that. So when I did zoom out, so now you can, if you do have, keep in mind that what is displayed will be available for the candlesticks that you do have, but you can keep in mind that you can add some additional screen real estate here by using that blue arrow in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. By the way, I didn't show you this before, but I also wanted you to see that there is, and let's go ahead, we're going to add a legend again, and well, we'll go back into the view menu. It is a position indicator. If you do hold a position within the underlying that you do have displayed, notice that you can choose whether you want a line which will be displayed at the average price which you paid for this particular contract. So notice here that position is showing me anything above 26.22, I'm in the green or is profitable. Anything below that, you'll see there if the lines fall below, it means that the unrealized gain and loss is below as well. So just did want you to see that. You can activate it or deactivate it. Now I do have a custom custom, I happen to prefer a custom, a line will give you just a green line across the screen at your average price level, where the field will color. Now, if you're long, it will color it in green. If you're short the contracts, it will be colored in red. So I did want to point that out. Okay. All right, let me see. Oh, the problem when you want to pull multiple fibs. Oh, well, Thomas, I might have I see Thomas has got another question on the fibs and using those Fibonacci's. And I'll show you in just a few minutes how you can add multiple charts to the same charting window, and that might be helpful. But before we do that, let's go back in, and I'm going to pull up my chart once again. And let me see here. Let's get back in, and I do want to pull up that chart because I want you to know that you can actually even trade directly from the chart. How would you trade? Well, go into the View menu and notice here Chart Trader is available. By activating the Chart Trader, and let's put this, let me put this back into and I'm going to put this into full screen mode here because now notice that you do have you'll see the chart trader actually opened at the very bottom of your screen. Now, for those of you who work in classic TWS, you'll recognize that this is our classic trader workstation order row. Now, when you do want to trade, notice first of all, I've got the hot buttons that are included directly in the title bar. Once again, you can view those. Notice with the hot buttons, I may want to see those in the chart frame. That puts them into the chart frame. And so here you'll notice that it is available, but those hot buttons will not cover up the price action here. So it may be above your candlesticks or below. But each of these hot buttons will allow you to trade right from the chart. Notice the blue for a buy. If you click that button, you'll see there is a dotted line that now appears on the chart. Clicking that, or notice now how as I move that chart or move that line within the chart, you'll also see, notice the blue price level. If I want to set an order at that particular price level, once I reach the level, simply left click and you'll see that order has now been activated and will appear in that chart trader. Now you'll see the same information for creating your orders, the instrument. For those of you who have a snapshot market data subscription, you can even pull or get a snapshot view of the quote. There's also a buy. This is being set up as a buy and the quantity that's available. Now, something to be aware of when you're trading from the chart is that the quantities are going to default to the default amount for the trading or for the instrument that you're trading. Equities and ETFs, the default amount is 100 shares, whereas options and future contracts are a single contract each. So keep that in mind. Once you do activate this, you can still click within that input field and then go in and view, say, for example, or change the quantity to be traded. Time and force is available, and day, good till cancel, or at the opening can be selected. You can also choose to have this fill outside of regular trading hours, RTH, or allow in the pre-market open. The arrowhead at the bottom of the screen will show you any additional times in force that you may not have used recently or within the past 2 weeks. These are grayed out, doesn't mean that they're not available. It just means that you don't actively use these selections. So that you can go in and make a change. For example, I may go in and just make this a good till cancel order. Now, the order types that are available will be displayed, and those that you actively use are displayed within that menu. But again, wherever you see that arrowhead, it means additional choices are available. I've got this price set way below the market right now, so I did want you to see that. And then there's a transmit button. Now, when you do go to transmit that trade with your order confirmation activated, you'll see a recap of the order you're about to place. Buying 500 shares. My order type is a limit order. My limit price is set and time in force is good till cancel. The amount of the trade is listed, and you'll also see the your margin impact. Current margin requirements are included here. What the change will be should this trade actually be filled, and then post-trade what those same requirements are. Now, if all of this is acceptable, you can choose to transmit this trade, and notice how it then activates, and you'll see the same order status is displayed as it's viewed within other areas of TWS. Now, at any point, you can come in and notice here I could change that price level. I might want to move it a little bit closer to the market. So what I'm going to do is once I make that adjustment, notice here that brown background shows you that you've modified that trade but have yet to transmit that modification. Clicking the update button, you'll see the order row now has been updated to 2885. So I did want you to see that that's available. Once that does fill, you'll be able to see that included directly on this screen. Okay, now, or you can also, up until the time that the order does fill, you can send a cancellation request. So I'll go ahead and send that cancel. Now, notice I'm going to go in with the sell. You'll see when I click on that sell icon that my sell button has now activated, and that dotted line, red dotted line, means I'm about to create a sell order. Now, once again, it creates an order based on the default. And in this case here, I may want to, instead of selling the entire quantity, I'm going to go ahead and sell 300 shares. We'll keep the time in force. Let's put it date good till cancel. And then you'll see here what that particular price level will be once I do go ahead and transmit this trade. So we'll transmit the trade. Now, something that I do want you to be aware of when trading from the chart is notice if I hover my cursor right over that order row, when it changes to that double-sided arrow, it gives you the ability to modify the order. So notice here, I'm simply moving that up, and let's move that up to $30. Once I release that, you'll see my notice how my limit price has changed, and I did not need to click update. So be very careful when you do have orders working in the chart that you don't inadvertently click and drag them. So did want to point that out. Okay, I'm going to send a cancellation request, and what I do want to do is show you, and I'm going to go back into, well, let's add a different ticker symbol. I'm just going to pull up Walmart, for example, and we'll go with equities. Notice I do have that real-time chart. I may want to go in and activate the chart trader where it's already displayed on the bottom. So what I will do, and notice here how the price action is in the upper left-hand corner. So in this case, you'll see those hot buttons actually display below. So when I do go to set that sell, or we saw the buy and the sell. So what I'm going to do here, and by the way, be careful with your trend lines. I'm going to, clicking and dragging, once you do have those trend lines, I'm going to remove all of them, but do be careful. Now, let's start off with the buy, and I'll go ahead and set this. We may set this a little bit closer to the market. So I'm going to go ahead and left click. Now, once I've set that, and maybe I want, well, I like to deal in round numbers, helps me with the math. So I'm going to go ahead and set the quantity of 1,000. Now, at this, and we're slightly below the market. Now, prior to, let's go ahead and we'll make this good till cancel. Prior to actually transmitting that trade, you do have the ability to submit more complex order types by attaching a trade. Now, when you do go to attach a bracket trade, for example, it will create two opposite side orders. Now, a bracket trade will bracket your initial parent order with those two opposite side orders, set a dollar above and a dollar below the current market price. So at the time of your trade, you'll see and notice here, those additional orders are actually activated. I'm going to go ahead and transmit, and not only will I transmit my parent order, that initial buy, but you'll also see my profit-taking limit order and protective stop will automatically be added onto the or added at the same time. We'll go ahead and click override and OK, and now notice that there is, well, I do have a precautionary measure. This message is showing me my order size of 1,000 exceeds 500 shares. But notice I do have the ability to override and transmit. These messages are meant to help you help prevent any fat-fingered errors by adding, for example, an extra zero. But if that's what you intend to trade, we can override and transmit each of those opposite side orders. Notice here those orders are now active in the platform, and you can see in the order status what each of those different order statuses are. Now at the time, and what I am going to do is go in and notice I can make a modification, and we're going to try and force a fill on that parent order. So I'm going to change this to a market order. We'll update, and as soon as I do, notice that I've just been filled. You'll see that order row has disappeared, and now notice my position indicator is showing me the average price for the trade I just completed. Also, remember we activated the trade indicator. So here you can see where that trade, that blue triangle, blue indicates I bought. You'll see my position indicates I'm long the number of shares, and all of that is displayed on the screen. Now, something else, by the way, you can set alerts if you do want to be alerted to a particular price. Notice I could simply put that alert in, and it opens up our alert window where you can set a price-based alert. Notice here the alert is set wherever you indicated in that line. We could activate that alert, or could actually even go into advanced settings and choose any of these additional alert conditions. I'll go ahead and click OK, and we're simply going to cancel this for right now, but I did want you to see you can be alerted as well. Let's now also on this page, there is an armed selection. I want you to be very careful with armed. Now, when you do make that selection, notice that you arming the application is you're arming it for instantaneous order transmission. So at the time that you place your trade, instead of having to click submit, it will automatically be transmitted and is most likely going to fill instantaneously. So do be very careful with this. Here we do have an activation contract, and if I do select yes, you'll see that notice here, first of all, with that arm selection, well, I do have some existing trades that are in here, but if I were to create another trade, I wouldn't need to submit it. It would automatically, just choosing buy when I set the price level, it would automatically transmit and most likely be filled. Now, notice here with the bracket trade that these are also set up as one cancels another. So after that parent order fills, notice that your profit-taking limit order is already in place, and so is that protective stop. Now, notice just to show you that these are set up as one cancels another, what I am going to do is try and force a fill again, and notice this time I'll change my profit-taking limit order to a market order, and we'll update from here. Now, once I've updated, notice that the order is complete. It is now displaying in TWS. You'll also be able to see, well, I've added and removed the trades, so now my position is flat, and I've lost $42 while I was talking to you. But this will give you that gain and loss for the current trading session. But also notice that at the top of the window, you can go in and view your trades, either for today, and let's take a look down below. Notice I bought and then sold that same contract. By the way, you'll see those same arrows, the blue and the red arrowheads are showing you, and you'll see my position indicator is gone because I'm now net zero. So I did want to show you that's available within the chart trader. By the way, when you see a plus sign here, it means this is how you can see how our smart routing technology works. Notice that I was filled in multiple lots. I was bought, let me see, we'll have to go down here. I'm going to move this up, moving that dotted line up. I was actually filled in 4 separate tax lots. So expanding that will show me the tax lot, and and let's go into the sold, and notice here I was sold in and let me see, here I was sold in 5 different tax lots. So just another way that you can see how that smart routing uh, or our smart router actually works. So here we do have those trades that are included. If you want to view, by the way, through the chart, you can view up to 7 days of previous transactions, and that's as many as TWS will accommodate. Okay, now what I am going to do, and let me see if I can, let me go up. I'm going to go into my edit menu. Let me see here. I do want to turn off that that alert. That's actually so. What I'm going to do is hover, right click, and we'll delete that alert. So let me. There we go. And now that alert is gone. Okay, when you're working from a chart, okay, so we took a quick look at being able to trade from the chart. By the way, if you're unfamiliar with the trading, do try it in your paper account so that you can simulate what would happen when you do trade live. All right, so now one final item that I do want to show you is underneath the File menu, because I did mention before that you do have the ability to add multiple charts into the same charting window. You could choose to add multi or individual tabs as well. But for now, what I'm going to do is underneath the File menu is add a chart to the window. You'll see a separate security selection opens up and asks whether you want to use the same security. So I'll go ahead and click OK. And now the chart parameters reopens up, and you'll see here I do have a monthly chart, but I might want to take a look at a 2-week chart. So I'll go ahead, make that choice, click OK, and now notice I have 2 charts that appear on this window. Now it is, you'll see that all of the features that are available will be for that chart, the active chart. So now notice I'm clicking on the title bar here for our 1-month chart with hourly bars, and I'm going to go into the view menu, and let's turn off the chart trader. Notice now how it's no longer visible down on the right hand side. Now also, there are 2 different title bars. This is your first clue that you've got multiple windows within that same charting package. I'm going to go ahead and we'll add another chart to the window. We'll leave that same items displayed. And this time what I might want to look at is a 3-month chart. So I'll go ahead and add that into my window. We'll go with those defaults. And now I have 3 separate charts. Now each of those charts can be, you can move, you can reposition, you can expand, and what I'm going to do is just make each of these charts slightly different. So notice I've got 3 time periods for each of the charts. And all of those, and what I'm going to do now, let me see if I can expand this just so so that it does fit the screen. Let me see. And notice that now, if I want to save this chart, I'll need to go back to the File menu, and I can save this as a chart template. Now, if you do want to add any technical studies or indicators, you can add those studies, and notice here, for example, I'm going to click on this title bar. Let's go into our chart parameters, and maybe instead of seeing months and daily candles, I might want to see hourly candlesticks. So I'll go ahead and make that selection, click apply and OK, and now you can see those will be displayed in the bottom of the chart. Now, in addition here, let's go ahead and I'm going to close this out. You can add, let's go in, we'll add, say for example, just a simple moving average. Or let's actually go into some additional studies. Let me see here. You've got pivot points. There's quite a few items that are available. So you can choose any of these studies. What I will do is I'm just going to click on the let me see. Well, instead of a simple moving average, I could also pull up a weighted moving average or an exponential moving average. So we'll go ahead and add those, click apply and OK. And I forgot to put that over. Sorry about that. We'll have to go in and add those chart studies, and I forgot to hit OK. So let's just go with the averages. Here's my simple moving average. Click add, click apply, and then OK. And notice how that fits just the one chart that you were looking at. Other charts you could add, and what I'm going to do is highlight this chart, and we'll go ahead and edit this and add a separate study. For example, I might want to add, well, in this case, I'll go ahead and we'll go back in with the MACD. Click add and then apply and OK. And I just want you to see that each of these charts can be configured differently. Now, once you've added all of those charts, keep in mind that you can go back in and save this as a chart template. Now I'm going to go ahead. I've already got a chart template that's been, I've already named a chart, but here's a 3-chart template. Notice the file extension TPL is showing you chart templates. So when I do go ahead and click save, I'll simply overwrite that chart. So if I do happen to close out of that chart and want to reopen a chart, notice that when I do go into open up a new chart, and let's choose, I'm going to go into Pfizer, we'll go into the chart, and notice here that in that drop-down menu, any of the templates you've created will become available. So rather than having to recreate your charts each time you open up a new chart, by saving it as a template, it then becomes available for use. Now, I'm also going to put this into, okay, I've got a setting here that, let me see if I can put this into a windowed view, and I do have, and it's not, it should scale, but what I do want to show you, and notice I could go in and play around with this, but by using the push pin that's included on your title bar, and notice I'm also going to choose a group color icon, which means that if I choose a different ticker symbol, let's go with GILD, and that automatically populates that same template. I could go into Apple, and go through an entire watch list. So if you are looking for some of those pattern recognition, you can actually scroll through any of your watch lists and view all of the tickers in that watch list. Just be careful. It does take 2 to 4 seconds for the chart to update when you are working from a template. Okay, now also what I'm going to do is this time, let's go in here, and I did have some pharmaceuticals. So I'm going to add, we'll pull up a chart for Pfizer, and we'll simply open a new chart, go into the new chart, and I'll go ahead and click OK, and that chart opens up. This time when I go to the File menu, I may want to add another chart to the window, but instead of using that same security, I'm going to deselect that, and notice now that I could add, let me see, we have Pfizer, so let's put Merck. Um, I'm going to add a different ticker symbol. We'll go ahead and make that selection, and then I'll simply go with OK. So here you can see you've got multiple different charts. I may want to, I'm going to go back in, add another chart to the window, deselect this, and let's add Bristol Myers. So, well, let me click within that box. So we'll go ahead and add these. And then notice that you can have, once I go ahead and click OK, you can have multiple charts within that same charting panel. Now, if you do want to save this chart, notice that if I try and save this as a chart template, it's not going to allow me. A template has to have the same ticker symbol in all of the charts that you've got appearing in the window. If you are going to, you still have the ability to save, but in this case, you'll need to save as a chart. When you do go to save it as a chart, notice, first of all, it will be a chart definition file, a DEF instead of a template, so keep that in mind. Now, I'm just going to call this a test template, and we'll go ahead and save from here. I've already got that template open, but this way I can view that chart. And by the way, let me see, if you click the title bar, notice that you can click and drag and move that off to any of your additional monitors as well. But if you close out of that chart, you can always open up a chart template from anywhere in TWS. Notice here, I'll go ahead and I'll choose File and Open Save Chart. It doesn't say Open Template. You'll have to open the template from within the chart, but you can open a save chart and go through. And notice here, if I did go to my test template, I could open that up. I've already got one on pharma that's been enabled, so I'll go ahead and open that particular chart and notice how it does open up with each of the different examples or perhaps a saved chart that I had opened before. So I did want to show you that. There is a limitation of the number of charts that can be added to any single window, and that's 16. So you have up to a maximum number of additional windows or additional charts that you can add for 16. Also, let me pull up, there's other charts that I do have available. And I'm going to go into Open Save Chart, and here's one that I have for multiple FX contracts. Notice when I do open that up, it actually, and this should scale to fit, but you'll see that I have 6 different currency pairs all included in that same window. So did want you to be aware that this is available. You can change but keep in mind when working with multiple charts, it is just the available or the highlighted chart that will have access to any of the drop-down menus or the toolbars that you do have available. Okay, so with that, I minimized that window. Let's go down here, and I'm going to pick up, and I actually do have multiple instances of that window, so multiple ones are available. Well, let me see. Okay, I see Thomas is asking, about those multiple Fibonacci's. Well, notice here, if we do go back in, and I may pull up a chart template. So in this case, instead of going into the window, what I will do is pull up, and remember that right-click here will allow me to go in and open up a chart. And by the way, any of your additional templates will be available. So I do have some templates here, so I'll go ahead and pull up those templates. And now I've got that, I've got that chart now working in the window. So this one here with the same ticker symbol you can use throughout TWS, and by using the color linking, it will automatically update each time that you take a look at separate charts or separate ticker symbols. Okay, so let's get back into some questions. Oh, how do you set up thumbnail charts? Okay, good question, Louise. All right, a thumbnail chart. Now, let's go to the new window button, and you'll see when you go to a chart, there is a thumbnail chart. A thumbnail chart is a small chart. Notice here how it is, it's included as a small chart. It does have the price access, and there are some settings that you can select. You can go back in and make that selection. But by default, these thumbnails actually appear. And let me actually take you to let's go into our daily lineup where you can see some of those thumbnails in action. Notice that the daily lineup is a separate window that will pre-populate with some of these thumbnail charts. Now the thumbnails are coming. Well, they're loading. What you'll be able to see, and you can add those or configure any of our windows. And notice here how these display a 2-day chart for the indices that are currently selected. So I'm currently looking at the E-mini S&P. If I do want to take a look, and what I'm going to do here, let me simply escape. I should be able to click. I might have something running in the background, but yeah, I've got that plus sign. But what you can do, notice how it's showing you the E-mini S&P. If you do want to take a look at currency pairs or the NASDAQ futures, you can do that from within this page by simply highlighting it. Now, when you do with those, so let's go ahead. Let me close that lineup. I've got something else there. Okay, so now I've got it in the background. When you do close out of that particular window, or if you want to add any of the small thumbnails, notice that you can do that on any of your screens by simply going into the unlock layout. I must have something open in the background here. Oh, I did have daily lineup. So it looks like I had 2 instances of that. So let's pull that up. Well, and here we have it. So that's why now I have it. So notice here, if I do click, oh, I closed it first. But if I do click on NASDAQ, we'll be able to see that. I'm going to let that one go. But let me see what the thumbnail then, if you do go in and unlock the layout, notice here, I'm going to go in and I've got something open in the background. So let me close out of some of these items. I'm getting into a little bit of latency on the platform, so my apologies on this. And closing down slowly. So let me see if I can close some of these other bars. But basically okay, so now let's see, then is this, I should be closing that item down, huh? Trader workstation not responding. Here we go. Okay. Anyway, I'm back in here. Did want you to see, looks like I've got some issues here, but notice that with the locked layout, you can unlock the layout and put a thumbnail in any of the workspaces. You can also use the plus that's located down on your frame in the bottom of the window and pull in any of our predefined layouts and add those thumbnail layouts that will give you at-a-glance information without having to configure a complete chart. But good question there, Louise. Thanks. Can I explain? Robert's got a question about the purpose of the consolidated button. And the consolidated button you're seeing right here included in the order entry window. Now, that is because of the way we or for market data. If you do not need market data or real-time data every moment of the trading day, we do give you the ability, and here we go. Let's see if we can close. Oh, I've got some latency in the background here. But as you're going in, if you do want to, and it's the consolidated button here, when you subscribe to market data, if you don't need real-time quotes, you do have the choice of subscribing to snapshot data. Snapshot at the time that you're going to place the trade by clicking that consolidated button will give you a real-time snapshot so that you can make those trading decisions. Snapshots are provided, and notice here, if I click this, I'm not sure what TWS is going to do. Now it's bringing back my daily lineup. But what that will do is it actually brings your focus into the advanced quote details for a one-time look at the national best bid and offer. So it's a way that you can conserve or keep your costs low when trading. Those snapshot quotes are available one time only. It does cost you a penny per every time that you click that consolidated button, but it can help lower any of your trading costs. So more on that is going to be discussed, and you can look, and I'm afraid to minimize my buttons here, but use the search field at the top of the Interactive Broker website, type in consolidated quotes, and you'll be able to follow a little bit more information on choosing that consolidated button. Now, keep in mind that is for U.S. equities only. Those that trade, because we do have 3 different networks that you would need to subscribe to get real-time quotes across the board. But it is U.S. equities only. If you're trading futures, Forex, or European equities, that button will not appear. More is available in our knowledge base, so simply type in consolidated quotes and you'll be able to learn a little bit more about that. Okay, Peter was asking, could I please go through a trailing stop? Okay, yeah, well, I could go through a trailing stop, and I may have to. Let's see if we can. I've got some. Let me see here if I can close some of my windows. I'm going to try and close some of my windows that I do have open. Okay, let me see if I can get this to now. No, it looks like TWS is not going to cooperate with me. But Peter, what you want to do when with a trailing stop, let me see. My apologies, I'm not going to be able to show you here. Let's close the program. It may take a little bit. It hung. So I do apologize, but let's go back in, and what I will try and do is launch TWS once again. See if I can bring this back up. Okay, once it launches. Now the key with the trailing stop, what a trailing stop will do is you actually, and I'll go ahead and what you're doing is you're setting a stop price that will trail the market. If the market moves in your direction and that price increases, for example, for a long position, as long as the market moves in your direction, so will that trailing stop. Let's see, here we go. We're coming back up now. And let me see. So I have this now. Let's see if I can close this out. And let me put this, and I'm going to bring TWS up. So let's see. I've got a Coca-Cola, for example. Notice here, I do have a position of 1,700 shares. Now, if I do want to set up, what I'm going to do is go in and set up to close that particular position. But instead of a limit order, what I do want to do is set a trailing amount. Now, when I do go into the trailing amount, notice that you'll see here that trail. That's the order type. But notice this will be set up as a trailing stop. Now, also notice the trailing amount can be set, and by clicking in this field, you can set it either by percentage or by absolute amount. It will automatically default to $1, or you can set it by a percentage. So notice here, and I do have it, and we'll put this um, and what I'll do is set this by percentage, and let's put it by 5%, for example. So once I set that amount, you're going to want to put it as a good till cancel order, and then submit that trade. Now, once I do submit the trade, notice we'll go ahead and override and transmit for here. And now notice that in the activity monitoring window, I see that I've got a trailing stop. It's going to sell my 1,700 shares, and my trailing amount is set at 5%. But what you don't know is where that's going to actually trigger. So from the activity monitor, simply go into your settings menu, and notice here it opens up global configuration, and we're on our order columns. Now, in this case, what I'm going to do is add the prices, and it is the stop election price you want to add into that monitor. Notice here that stop price has been added, so I'll click apply and OK. And now you'll be able to see, and let me see if I can move this item over. Let me go into my details here. And now I know that stop election price. It has been set 5% below where the market, the market currently is. So as long as the prices or as long as the price continues to move up, so will my stop election price. Notice it just did from 41.76 to 41.77. But should the market tick down, or I know where that you'll see with that stop election price here, you know where that trade will actually trigger. So hopefully that's what you were looking for, Peter. A quick look. And by the way, you can try all of this out in your paper account. If you don't have a paper account, go to the account window in TWS, and you can choose to create a paper account. This will actually take you into account management, where you can request that paper account today. Paper trading accounts are available for all of you who have an approved and a funded TWS account, and there is no additional price. That's because we mirror your same market, your same trading permissions and market data in that simulated trading environment. So by all means, you can try those out. Utilizing paper before you do start trading live. Okay, charts for different stocks. You can add charts for different stocks, and keep in mind, Louise, when you go to open up a chart, you select the underlying ticker symbol, and it automatically updates here. If you move to another ticker symbol, notice that I can right-click and open up another chart or set up a new chart for that particular ticker symbol. But remember, we just went through going through all of the templates. If there is a specific chart type that you see with different studies, maybe you like to take a look at a 1-month chart, and you might even want to add multiple charts to where you're viewing information daily, all of that can be done, but simply choose to create a template. That way you don't have to do it each time you open up a new chart. By the way, if you do add trend lines or any text commentary, those will not be saved with the chart template. For those, you'll have to go in and save the chart as a definition file. Then you can pull that chart up. For example, if you do want to add different trend lines or annotations in your charts, you can pull those up by going into the file menu and open, let me see, we'll go and open up a saved chart, and here's one that I have on Cisco, so I'll go ahead and open up that chart, and notice that I didn't need to take any time and reconstruct the chart. So here I do have that Cisco chart. So any text, any trend lines would also be carried over in that definition file. Okay, what about screening for stocks? Very good question. And I do have something else that I want to show you. Notice that in your quote monitor screen, uh, clicking that plus icon, you can go into the Mosaic Market Scanner. Market scanners are available for you to scan markets for some possible trading opportunities. Um, so notice here, you do have to start off with the instrument that you're looking for example, stocks and U.S. and the global region. There's additional predefined scans for different uh, instruments, so just keep that in mind. Now what I'm going to do is go in and choose from those predefined items, and we'll go in and choose U.S. active. Once I add U.S. active, notice here that you can also customize it using that button by defining the last price. Notice that you can use values. You can also filter. There's different filtering criteria. You can use these range bars, and I may only want to see last price that is above $10, for example, and that will be displayed. Now, when you're scanning for stocks, there's also, as we go in, um, I'm going to go back into add field. You can add additional fields. And one of the items that I do want to point out are technical indicators. You can add technical indicators into those scanners. And I think I do have one. I do here. Strong bullish. Now, this scanner, I've got quite a bit of information, but what I am going to do is double click the title bar and notice how it's showing me the instrument type, the last price, the change, and the short-term event. Now, when you do add those technical indicators, these are from Recognia, which does require a subscription. It's a market data subscription. I'm sorry, not market data, research subscription that's available in TWS. When you do have that subscription, notice here that you can set up these scanners, and I'm going to go ahead and let me see if I can collapse each of these columns so that we can see what each of those technical events were. So for a MACD, if you're looking for momentum, stochastics, a hammer, so any of those that are available will be displayed here. So from this window here, notice how you can then simply right-click on a ticker symbol, go into analysis, and then actually go into a real-time chart and further identify, well, I didn't have my icon, my color linking icon, but you could go in and view additional information and even add those technical studies. So if you're looking for screening the stocks, you may want to take a look at Recognia, which will allow you to add these long-term, intermediate term, or short-term technical indicators. Okay. Percent gainers. Well, let's go back. We can even add percent gainers. So notice here, I'm going to put the U.S. movers, and this will show you, it's actually a dual sort for your scanner that shows you those that have the highest negative change as well as the highest positive change. Additional filters, you can add filters, you can add additional market data fields, anything that will help you make that decision can all be added into your market scanner feature. So a quick look at that. Do try that out in your paper account as well. Once you set up these scanners, notice that when you, by the way, you can even export those results to a CSV file that is readable in Excel as well. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of this. Well, it looks like we have we've gone way over, but I did want to answer all of your questions here today, and I want to thank you all for participating in our event. I hope I've opened up your eyes to just some of the capabilities and the advanced capabilities that we have within the Trader Workstation. So we are going to conclude our webinar for today. I do want to remind you we have been recording today's event, and each of you will get a direct link to today's recorded playback later on this afternoon. So if you want to come back and revisit the concepts that we discussed today, simply watch your inbox later on for a direct link that will include today's recording, but also give you access to the webinar notes. Now, one last item I'm going to show you is let's pull up the Interactive Broker website and go underneath the education menu. Notice that in here, I'm going to go into the webinars section where you can join me for any upcoming webinars this month, or actually go in and view prior recordings as well. Going in to view those recorded sessions, you'll be able to see any that were recently done. You can scroll down, or you could simply choose charts. So I'm going to add charts, and notice here's where today's webinar will replace this recording, but I did want to point out the webinar notes. Everything that we've talked about here today is included in the webinar notes, and the link for that will be included with the follow-up after today's event. So with that, once again, thank you all very much for sticking with me this long. And do remember to all, please trade smart. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. You can exit using the X in the upper right-hand corner of the window. Thanks so much.